Today we've got a great story of revenge against an awful prank caller. We'll get to that in a bit, but first, terrible roommate in college? Finally got my revenge. So in college sophomore year, I lived in an apartment-style dorm where there was a living room/kitchen and 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. My childhood best friend was the roommate on my side. We were all on the soccer team, so the 2 guys on the other side were from elsewhere, one from London and one from another state. Generally got along with the guy from London, and even friends to this day. Long story short, the guy from Michigan was the worst possible roommate I had ever had. He would leave bags of trash around the dorm expecting others to take them out, use cookware that wasn't his and absolutely ruin it, mostly by cooking dishes and using knives or forks to stir with the point down on the metal. He moved his TV to the living room and would listen on 100 volume while FaceTiming people and yelling over the TV volume. I usually clean the dorm as I'm somewhat OCD and don't mind cleaning up after others. However, he ruined probably $100 worth of cookware and had bugs in our dorm by the time I would get home from a weekend at home. I had many calm conversations with him on all of this, and he would every time get angry and do nothing different. On to my revenge. I was typically not the go-out clubbing type as I was dealing with injuries to my knee as well as difficult college classes. One night when they went out to a club, I saw he left his keys in his dorm room and knew they would come back wasted. I locked his door from the inside and closed it, knowing he would think he closed it. I then went to bed at a cool 9 p.m. and opened the windows on a relatively chill night. Amazingly, this dude managed to bring a girl back to the dorm on this specific night for the first time. He couldn't get into his room and couldn't call an RA because it's a dry campus, and he was absolutely wasted. I hear him ask the girl to stay on the couch, and she quickly leaves. He has no choice but to sleep on the couch in our 62-degree dorm room. I made sure he had his TV though, and he drank enough to even get sick. He threw up on the couch, the one only he uses, and had to sleep out there. The next morning I went to the head of living and asked to move to another dorm due to this, and she sent an RA to look at the room. The RA saw him and approved my request. I would still go back to hang with my buddy at times, and I swear a month later, you had to wade through garbage bags. Yeah, I don't really blame OP for wanting to get a different room, and honestly, I'm both impressed and glad for their sake that the RA actually did approve it. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy awesome stories of revenge, why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is, we changed the hold music for dealing with one vendor. So I work for an MSP doing outsourced IT. We've recently taken on a new client who was tired of dealing with an out-of-town IT company and wanted someone local. Her current IT company kept dragging their feet on turning over documentation and passwords. Finally, we get the client and the current provider on the phone, and we tell them that we can do this with or without you, and it will make everything easier if you cooperate. They finally agreed to a call last Friday to go through the changeover. We had them call in on our work line to walk through various handover instructions and documentation. Since it was our phone system, we adjusted the hold music to U2's With or Without You. Yes, I did put them on hold multiple times throughout the day as we worked through the changeover. Our next story is, boyfriend wouldn't stay off dating sites. So, in my younger years, when I was 23-year-old female, I was in a toxic relationship with a 25-year-old male. It was a roller coaster of a relationship, where he was always in a precarious situation, but I never really had proof of him cheating. He was on sites like Hot or Not, where users rated your pic and could message you via email, etc. He was getting romantic messages from females, but would never take down his profile. His email had the letter I in it. So, tired of him getting messages from other women, I created an email address identical to his, only I used a lowercase L instead of an I, and input it into his account. So all of his messages were coming to me. He spent time and couldn't figure it out, and I was laughing to myself. Thankfully, I'm out of that toxic situation, but it was a small win that I was proud of outsmarting him on. There's been things I've interacted with, like games where you can name your character, and in some, depending on the font they use, you really can masquerade as something else using an uppercase I or a lowercase L. This next story is Corrupt Cop Revenge. So this happened a few months ago. I'm driving in a city in the Eastern Europe, not going to specify the country. I'm on a pretty wide road, on the middle lane and a few cars. A pedestrian comes to the crossing, but I didn't stop because I was about 2 meters from the crossing when they started crossing. And as I said, I was 2 lanes away from the side of the road. 100 meters later, an unmarked police car stops me. The officer comes to my car, tells me why he stopped me, because I didn't yield for the pedestrian. I told them I was already too close to the crossing to stop and really didn't interfere with the pedestrian. After a few minutes of arguing on the topic, the officer agrees and says something along the lines, "Yeah, maybe you're right, but now that I stopped you, I still need to write a fine. So I'll make it the smallest one. I'll give you a fine for illegal parking." That angered me so much, but I said, okay, just do it faster. I thought it wasn't worth it to argue too long for a small fine. I go to their car, he starts writing the papers, and outside the car he tells me, "But if you show me your car documents and they're all right, I'll let you go," while also making the universal "give me money" sign with his hand. Now I tell him to write the fine. After he's written the fine, I ask him to go with me to my car and tell him, "You see this dash cam? It's recorded the pedestrian and whether I was guilty for not stopping. But you gave me a fine for illegal parking. How do you think this fits together?" He had a very shocked face. I call my best friend and tell him, "Good day, Mr. General. We have a situation here." Obviously, he's not a general, but he got it and played along. I tell him we have 2 officers that asked for a bribe. Can you send in 2 guys from the anti-corruption department? He loudly responds, "Yes, of course. Where?" I give him the address, and he says they'll be here in 15 minutes. The police officer was afraid for his life. He started begging me to let him go and started apologizing. He immediately ripped up the fine and put it in his pocket. I jokingly said, No, now you need to show me your car documents," and showed him the universal "give me money" sign. He genuinely believed me and started looking for his wallet. I stop him and tell him that I was joking. I told him that I'm in a rush and don't have 15 minutes to wait for the anti-corruption guys. But if they ever stop me again, I will definitely wait. Since then, I got a military salute from 2 patrol cars while I was driving. All I'm gonna say is if you use this dash cam defense, make sure it's a dash cam that is actively uploading and recording to the cloud, because I imagine a lot of police officers in these corrupt locations are more than happy to, "Oops, accidentally damage your dash cam. Oops, accidentally took the SD card." This next story is, someone thought I wouldn't call the cops after he threatened to burn down my shed. I don't know what I said to set this guy off, but a Facebook keyboard warrior threatened to burn down my shed and made it clear that he knew where I lived. He told me that I would never call the cops because I rented a room to my goddaughter's father, who happens to be the biggest criminal in the city I was living in at the time. I warned him that our dogs liked hanging out in the shed. I sent him a pic of the cop standing outside my shed taking my report. I saw that one of my friends was a mutual friend of his. She told me his address. A few days later, I sent him a video of my tenant's reaction when I told them about the jerk's threat to kill our dogs. I gave my tenant the address. The video ended with my tenant tearing out of the driveway and heading in the jerk's direction. Mutual friend told me that the jerk decided to visit his mother in another city for a little while. Our next story is the story of how I got a restraining order against my neighbor Karen. I'm a 20-year-old female who lives in a suburban neighborhood with my family. A few years ago, we had new neighbors move in next door. At first, they seemed okay, but then they turned out to be complete party animals. I'm talking partying 3 times a week, blasting loud music till 2 a.m., Over the past year and a half, we've had multiple confrontations with our neighbors over petty stuff. In fact, I made a post about one of these petty confrontations with our neighbor on r/malicious compliance. I'm shocked it blew up as much as it did, and honestly, I almost forgot about the post entirely until a few weeks ago. Here's the story. Our neighbors were having another one of their super crazy pool parties, and it was driving everyone in the neighborhood crazy. The police couldn't do much because we would make a noise complaint and the police would show up to give them a warning. Things would get quiet for maybe 30 minutes, but then the partying would start again. Over time, some neighbors began to give up and eventually, some even moved away. This was especially upsetting for my mom when one of her friends, who lived on the other side of our neighbor, moved away due to our horrible neighbor. My mom had finally had enough. Once the party finally seemed to wind down at around midnight and guests started leaving, my mom marched straight up to the female owner of the house. We'll call her Lying Sally because she's a pathological liar, and warned her that we'll start calling the cops on them more often if they don't stop. Of course, Lying Sally and her party guests laugh and start taunting my mom, which led to an ugly screaming match. Luckily, I had the common sense to record all of this, just in case, and thank God I did. At some point during the fight, Lying Sally screams at my mom, "I'm going to freaking beat the crap out of you." One of our neighbors called the cops, which I don't blame him for doing so. I was getting worried for my mom since Lying Sally kept threatening to mess her up. The cops came and everything got peacefully resolved. It wasn't until the next morning I reviewed the video and remembered that you can file a restraining order against somebody for threat of assault. Now here's the thing. I knew that filing a restraining order against someone can cause that person to maybe lose their job or make it very difficult for that person to find a future job. I knew from the sticker on the back of her car that she works in a daycare. If I were a nicer person, I could have let it go. Too bad I'm petty. So we filed the restraining order, took my neighbor to court, and after showing the judge the video, he was immediately on our side. Especially after she had initially tried to lie and claim that she never once threatened my mom. She didn't know I had video proof. The judge granted us the restraining order and we were jumping for joy. Meanwhile, Lying Sally wouldn't stop crying and pleading with the judge to rethink his verdict. The real kicker? I made an anonymous call with a friend's phone to the daycare center where she worked and let her boss know everything. A few days later, I noticed that she had removed the sticker on the back of her car. I'm pretty sure she was fired because she started staying at home almost 24/7. Her car almost never left the driveway. Also, the best part? The crazy loud parties finally stopped. It's been radio silent for a whole month. You can bet that during Christmas, our closest neighbors dropped off a lot of cookie tins and chocolates as thanks. I mean, it worked out in the end. They stopped all the crazy loud parties, but it's almost a blessing and a curse to see them get fired, but then know that they're home almost all the time. Good thing you got the restraining order. Our next story is Call the County on Me? Two can play that game. This happened back in 2015 after buying my first home. The property had been neglected and overgrown with ivy, blackberries, and other weeds on over an acre. I bought 3 goats, and it took them about 4 months to clear everything. They were big, hungry girls, and one of them got a taste for my neighbor's new raspberry plants. She had just planted some raspberry starts, and my goat ate the leaves off. We felt really bad and let our neighbors know we would be getting rid of them, and had posted an ad on Craigslist, and that we would replace the starts. We tried tying the goat up, penning her, etc., but she would always escape and go for the raspberry leaves. It all blew up when on Easter morning, their adult daughter came over and started screaming at us and threatening us, insulting us, letting us know that they had a gun and would shoot it. My husband told them to get off our property or he would call the cops. Our neighbor proceeded to run off and cry. She started throwing the plants over the fence. All but one of the 6 were okay and could be regrown. These were small 1 to 2 foot starts. The next few days I had a buyer for the goats. The day after they were gone, I got a notice from the county about the goats. I talked to my other neighbors and they informed me they love calling the county on everyone. I thought 2 could play at that game. They had their chicken coop against our shared fence, which is illegal where I lived. It has to be a certain distance from a neighbor's property. They also didn't believe in garbage service, said it was a ripoff, and dumped their trash around their property and against the fence. We called the county and they ended up doing an entire walkthrough of our neighbor's property. They had to move their chicken coop and remove all of the garbage. One of their kids made a comment about needing to find another place to dump their garbage. They had to build a new coop as the other one couldn't be moved. I'd love to say that that's where it ended, but it ended up being a 5-year war about many things until they put their house up for sale. Right when theirs went under contract, we put ours on the market. We were already planning to move and so ended the war. This next story is back from college break to have nothing. I'm so proud of my daughter for doing this. My daughter, 19-year-old female, had a group of high school friends for years. Fast forward freshman year college, and her new roommate becomes part of the friend group. I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer the same day she started classes that year. And as the year goes on, her relationship with some of these friends starts to have problems. But the roommate still seems solid, so they sign a lease for sophomore year. By the beginning of sophomore year, all of her high school friends, 4, have turned on my daughter and she's struggling to figure out why. By the end of September, she finds out the roommate's been playing both sides of the fence and has ultimately sided with my daughter's old friends and continues to see them regularly. This, of course, creates a nasty living situation for my daughter, but she does her best to manage through. As time goes on, I come to find out that her friends turned on her because they felt that her emotional needs were toxic for them to be around. My daughter was having panic attacks about my cancer and other normal things and was reaching out to her friends for someone to talk to, and they couldn't handle it. A few weeks ago, the roommate invited 2 of these friends to stay over. My daughter asked that they pick another time as she had work and then an all-nighter ahead of her finishing her finals, and she didn't want to be in the apartment if they were going to be. The roommate ignored this request. My daughter walked into them being there after work and had a panic attack. The roommate looked at her and said, "See, this is why you have no friends when you behave like this. What do you expect?" This week, my daughter managed to find a way to move out before the roommate came back from break. The couch, the coffee table, the rug, the pots and pan, the dishes, the shower curtain, on and on. All of it was my daughter's. The internet, the electric, the water, all in my daughter's name. She took everything, moved out, and left the roommate to come back from break with none of it working and all of the shared space items gone, and left her a note signed, "What did you expect?" Oh, I wish I could be a fly on the wall when she walks in. Honestly, I'm just glad she had this window where she could pick everything up, pull it out of there and move without even having to see that person. Makes it so easy to just do all of that and put a nice little bow on it on your way out. Our next story is, we helped Bad Boss create his own downfall. Years ago, I worked in a small retail store in a large shopping center. The staff were me, a good colleague, and the store manager. Also frequently visiting was the store's manager boss, the district manager. When colleague and I started, store manager told us almost word for word, "I was the top salesman in the company. That's how I got promoted to management. I get to sit back and relax now because it's your turn to do all the work." And true to his word, the store manager slacked off and let us do all the work. We served the customers, managed the inventory, and even did all the paperwork and banking for him. While he kept turning up, he would spend his day roaming the shopping center, sitting at the coffee shop, flirting with female employees in other stores, or playing games at the arcade game center. To make matters worse, store manager would borrow brand new mobile phones from the stock and borrow money from the till for his own personal use. Colleague and I were unimpressed, of course, and after deciding we'd had enough of his crap, we decided to help him with his own downfall. 1, we stopped tidying up after him. As long as they weren't in our way, we didn't touch his leftover food and drinks. 2, every time he disappeared, we tidied and reorganized the store a little. 3, we were brutally honest whenever the district manager visited. District manager says, "Where's the store manager?" We say, "He's at the arcade game center, sir," or "He's chatting to girls upstairs, sir." They say, "Why is this mobile phone box empty?" We say, "Store manager said he was borrowing the phone, sir." Within a couple of months, the store had been completely reorganized. Store manager had no idea where anything was located anymore. He missed all the memos from head office and didn't know about new products or procedures. He also had to dispose of moldy plates and cups on quite a few occasions. Colleague and I were running the store more efficiently than ever, and store manager was completely redundant by that stage. District manager had figured out what was going on and had probably begun the process of having store manager terminated. There were procedures to follow, so this would take a while. Then one day, store manager turned up to work early, surprising, and told us that he had resigned. He probably figured out that he was about to be fired and preferred to leave on his own terms. District manager arrived soon after to give store manager an exit interview at his favorite coffee shop. Colleague and I wasted no time to prepare the final insult. Before the exit interview was even finished, we had already packed all of the store manager's personal belongings into a box, ready for him to pick up and leave. Bye, store manager. I mean, it had to be completely telling for them to walk in and just be handed a box with all of their stuff all ready to go. How much more giddy to see you leave can you possibly look? This next story is Roommate Heck. Roommate has been a complete and utter jerk since he moved in with us. Won't buy anything for himself, uses our stuff, has never asked, never picks up after himself or helps take out trash. Once the bin was so full, instead of changing it like an adult, he takes a Chipotle bag and fills it with chicken parts he was done with and sets it on the floor. I have 4 cats. Can you guess what happened and who had to clean it up? He uses my pans, my plates, my toilet paper, and anything else I've bought without asking. He pays his rent 2 weeks late, and if we don't ask him for it, he won't pay it at all. If I try to talk to him, he dismisses me and walks away. He's extremely selfish, inconsiderate, and just freaking rude. I've come to Am I the Jerk before. Everyone just tells me to move. Here comes my petty revenge. He's not on the lease. No idea why my other roommate never took him down there and did it, but oh well. I have zero legal requirement to tell him we're moving out. So a week before we do is when I'm telling him. In all honesty, I would just move out while he's at work. But my roommate says that's too far, and I agree. Just a reminder to everyone to be respectful to the people you live with. Otherwise, you're gonna get blindsided. I think it sounds like OP is assuming the roommate is going along with this as far as not telling them. Considering it's the roommate's friend who's the slob, they're probably telling them in private and just saying, be ready for it. This next story is how I dealt with a really obnoxious mom staying at the hotel I worked at. I worked part-time at a hotel while studying. The summer was always a pain in the butt as the regular low-key business folks were replaced with stressed-out families. A lot of the times, the moms would make a stink in the reception area. Our rooms are small but can fit 6 people max, but really tight, almost crammed. This one time, this mother, the mother of all Karens, came with her family of 5. She was angry from the moment she walked into the reception. When she finally got her turn to check in, all check-ins came at the same time, so there was a line. She was annoyed and irritated, even though I did my best to welcome them and greet them friendly. They got their key and went to their room. 10 minutes later, she came back and skipped ahead of the rest of the queue to complain about their room, which she said was way too small for 5 people, even though it had 5 beds. Her entire family came down. She harassed me for about 5 minutes, even after I politely explained to her that there were no more rooms. Finally, I caved and said, look, we're not supposed to do this, but if you want, I can give you the money for the room's cash, and you can find another hotel room. Finally, a smile from this witch. I refunded her with cash from the register, and she went on her way. They hadn't used anything in the room, so I marked the room as available. 10 minutes later, another family reserved the room. About 30 minutes after Karen left, they came back. She was even more stressed. There are no hotel rooms available in the entire town. We have no choice but to take your room, she said. Oh, I'm sorry, I just sold the room, I told her. But I'd be happy to find you a hotel room in X or Y, neighboring cities, both 40 to 45 minutes away. This really set her off. We're going to the zoo, local attraction, very popular. Driving 45 minutes each way is going to ruin our entire day. I said, I know, you told me, but to be fair, you did have a room here. It's always like this during the summer. All hotels are booked solid. So you knew this? She was so angry she was almost spitting. I said, yeah, of course there would be cancellations at some hotels, but it's not likely during the summer. But hey, enjoy the zoo in your new hotel, I triumphantly said. She stomped off, and her husband gave her the angriest look I've ever seen. He looked so pissed at her for complaining. I'm not gonna lie, I can get pretty upset at things too sometimes, but more often than not, I do find patience is a virtue and cooler heads prevail are 2 very true sayings. I can't tell you how many times I've accidentally broken something or pushed something too far, because I'm just being too much of a hothead in the moment. Our next story is, you want to prank call me about my missing dog? Enjoy getting all the telemarketing phone calls, my guy. My dog went missing a couple weeks ago, and I miss her terribly. We've been putting up missing posters with reward money to try to get her back. Yesterday, someone called me from a number I didn't recognize, but with the right area code. I excitedly answered the phone, only to slowly realize I was hearing some very human barking into my phone. I immediately hung up. I was very angry but willing to let it go. Until they called again last night. Anyway, this idiot didn't block their number. So now I'm requesting information from colleges, insurance, extended warranties, etc. on their behalf. It's very, very petty, but darn, I think it's fitting. This next story is, don't wave at me to say hi, clear your own snow. This is super petty but happened today/yesterday, and I just couldn't stop laughing to myself about it. I live in a little mother-in-law apartment that's at the back of 2 houses in a row, with a long driveway that makes an L around the side of the first house. About 175 feet total to my apartment. My housemates are always super friendly to me and even get my mail sometimes and put it on my doorstep for me. The family that lives in front of me seems kind of nice, but they always let their dogs bark, and they never wave at me when I drive by them, even though I wave at them every time. It's not a big deal, but I know that they see me wave as they make eye contact, but don't wave back. Well, yesterday, we got about 18 inches of snow. And since we live at the edge of a field, we got maybe 6 inches plus of snow drifts on top of that. I work early this morning, so yesterday I made it a point to shovel the entire driveway so that I could make it out in my car. It was a lot of work and took me about 4 hours shoveling by hand to make a clear path. I made sure to dig out the nice neighbors' cars and clear a path for them as well, but I left the neighbors who don't wave at me snowed in. I didn't pile snow behind their cars or anything, but just left it how it was, about 2 feet deep. This morning, I got up at 6 and easily got in my car and out the driveway. As I was pulling out, the front neighbor was snow blowing the snow out of behind their cars. As I passed by using the nice clear path I'd carved myself the day before, he waved. Too late, sir. Too late. Well, this just really sucks to be an introvert. It takes a lot of courage for me to wave at people. Our next story is, next door neighbor yelled at me for asking her not to let guests park in front of a fire hydrant, so I left a gift in her yard. For reference, my suburban neighborhood has plenty of wildlife. Possums, deer, squirrels, groundhogs, falcons, not to mention plenty of domestic dogs and cats. My next door neighbors have pretty raucous parties outside in the summer. Annoying, but fine. And told me when I moved in to come talk to them about any issues. I've talked to them a few times when the parties have gone past 1 or 2 a.m. My bedroom window faces their yard, so I can't sleep when they're making a ton of noise. I have a fire hydrant in my front yard. A few times their guests have parked in front of it. Once I went over and asked that they don't do it as it's a safety issue. The wife screamed at me. I'm 35-year-old female and have a loud voice. So I'm sensitive about people saying women shriek, but she was legit yelling. Her friends had to pull her away from me about how they've lived here 20 years and nothing happened, no one else thought it was an issue, etc. I ended up going to my front yard to water plants, and the owner of the car in question came over and introduced himself, apologized, and I offered to move my car up so he could park in front of my front walk and not block the hydrant. Overall, our interaction was polite. I still had an axe to grind against wife neighbor. There had been a few other interactions between us that made it clear that she's not very nice. So one day, when I had a rotisserie chicken that had passed its sell-by date, I left it in her backyard. Totally petty and indirect, but it made me feel better and gave some local wildlife a meal. I'm not gonna lie, what OP did was a little bit more acceptable than where I thought they were going. I thought that maybe they were going to have their dogs go in her yard, leave a gift, or maybe OP themselves leave a gift in their yard by way of nature. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely awesome revenge story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.